Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Hines on Air, your weekly dose of inspiration, motivation, and real-life entrepreneurial stories. I'm Matt Hines, your host, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey. From building a successful law firm to venturing into other industries like real estate and social media, I've experienced both the triumphs and the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. I've learned firsthand the importance of resilience, adaptability, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. On Hines on Air, we're diving deep into the world of business, law, and personal growth. Join me as I chat with incredible guests who have faced adversity, defied expectations, and achieved extraordinary success. We'll discuss their strategies, their mindset, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply someone looking for a little inspiration, Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories. Let's get started. Hey everybody, it is Matt Hines. We are back with another exciting Hines on Air. We got Mr. R. Scott Edwards with us today, and this is one individual that has done it all. His first company was started back when he was 17 years old. There have been 12 companies since then, 3 books written, 4 podcasts, a comedic history of, lots of accomplishments there. So we are excited to welcome Mr. Scott Edwards onto the show. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, it's so exciting to be here. Hines on the Air with Matt Hines. Wow, it's incredible.
Oh, nice.
I
like it. Tell that audience to calm down. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's exciting to be here. Your audience is great. Matt, you're doing such a wonderful job with your podcast. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, you can see I'm shy and quiet, and I'll just try to be entertaining.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. Here we are, and we've got the man himself ready to talk about all he's done. So, all right, so 12 businesses. You and I were talking right before the podcast started, but you said a paper route, but then you went on the submarine, which was like fascinating. Take it through a little bit.
It's a pretty big leap from delivering newspapers to the submarine. It did happen, but there was a few decades in between. Yeah, Matt, like a lot of people, my family struggled. My folks got divorced when I was 10. There was some financial pressures. I was working, the child labor laws didn't matter at the time, and was doing paper routes and mowing lawns and babysitting. And then in California, you're not supposed to get a driver's license until you're 16 and a half or older. This back in the day. And I actually got a special license at age 15 because I had a first job to help support my mom. I was working a pizza parlor. And so, it was that work ethic was built into me early on. But what you're referring to is when I was 17, I was a night, get this, Matt, let's talk about exciting. I was a night janitor for a sleazy motel. And I was cleaning toilets and repairing TVs and buffing floors. And I was hiding out in the bar. And again, I'm 17. I'm not even supposed to be in the bar. And I overheard these 2 guys talking about making money on the weekends, painting lines in parking lots. And I thought, shit, I could do that. So I researched it. And I think that's the key to any entrepreneur that wants to go into business, man, is you got to do your research. And so I went and talked to other competitive companies that painted lines and parking lots, striping companies. And I met the owners, and, they weren't worried about competition from the 17-year-old. So they loved to brag and talk about, where they got their paint, what do they charge their customers, how they do the job. And I learned all that. But here's what's interesting, Matt. I had no money. And so a friend of mine had just come into an inheritance of $500, and I convinced him to invest in a paint striping machine. So now there's 2 of us. It's a partnership. We have paint, we have a paint equipment, but then we had no way to get to the jobs. So I went to another high school buddy that happened to own a van, and I convinced him to join the company, and the 3 of us started A&A Restripe. And that's important, Matthew, because back in 1970, there was no social media, there was no internet. People found repair people through what was called the yellow pages. A lot of people don't remember those, the yellow pages. And so
The bonding companies right now, like to get to bond people out of jail, they have their relic titles. It's double A and triple A and quadruple A and da-da-da. It's everybody's A's.
so funny, man, because you did stupid stuff like that to be first in the list.
That wasn't stupid. That's that one.
My first company, my first foray into business, the three of us ran around Northern California. We did all the McDonald's. We did all the Safeway stores, which is a large grocery chain. We did an airport. And it was great because I was a good negotiator. When we did all the McDonald's, and remember, I'm 17. I negotiated with McDonald's that not only would they pay us, but we got free food at every McDonald's, right? So we're 17 years old, running from McDonald's to McDonald's, eating that. I couldn't eat that stuff today. But when you're 17, it's like,
Hey, you can't get enough of those hot fudge sundaes. They'll never get old.
yeah, that's true. And the best thing in the world is a hot McDonald's French fry. The worst thing in the world is a cold milk bottle, right? But anyway, that was my beginning in business. I was seat of my pants. I was negotiating. I was learning. I developed some sales skills. I took this shy personality I had, and I was always the salesman going out and trying to drum up business. It was difficult. We didn't make a lot of money, but it was our own business. We worked our own hours, which was a lot. You have to work a lot when you work for yourself, and we made it work. It was a good start, a good foundation for the future.
So you were the marketer? Is that y'all's marketing arm? Was just you going around talking to new companies?
Yeah, well, first I did the research talking to competitive companies to learn the business, but then as the salesman, I was going out and trying to negotiate contracts to paint the lines in people's parking lots, whether it was a hotel, a grocery store, or a McDonald's or fast food. It was great experience for me because you learn those skills of how to take a no. A lot of people get set back when someone tells them no. They take it personally. And a good salesman understands that for every sale, there's going to be at least 10 no's. And I learned that at an early age.
Did you ever feel your age was against you? Like they're going to respect the 17-year-old wanting to do their business?
Definitely. In fact, I think at 17, a lot of the work I was able to negotiate from companies where they kind of admired that we were trying. I think that it worked to our advantage. But a great story, Matt, when I was 24, I started my first comedy club. I ended up with a chain of 3 clubs, 2 restaurants, and a couple art galleries. And that led to the Submarine and a beach shack in Hawaii, which we can get to. But I was 24 and I opened this club. And when you own a comedy club, for those that don't know, it's not only a showroom, but you also have to own a bar. So you're a bar owner, and you have to serve food. So you're a restaurant. So I was having to learn how to manage and operate this restaurant, bar, showroom. And I was 24 years old. I had already a couple of companies under my belt, so I kind of knew how to run a company, but it was all new experiences. But one of the great stories was that I was kicking somebody out because I'm a big guy, so I was also the club bouncer. And I was kicking a drunk guy out, and he's poking me in the chest, and he goes, "I want to talk to the manager." I said, "Well, sir, I'm the manager, and if you don't leave, I'm calling the cops." And he goes, No, I want to talk to the owner." No, well, sorry, sir, I'm the owner." "No way, I want to talk to your dad." Oh. And I said, "Sorry, man, the buck stops here. Yeah, get your ass out of here. I'm calling the cops." So it was, it did come up occasionally. I was, I don't know if it was blessed or cursed, but I was responsible for my own existence from an early age and had to take that responsibility on. And sometimes it worked out great and many times it didn't. But age can be, a factor.
I got you. I thought I always had that idea. It didn't show up in the results, but I had the idea that a family or somebody would not give me the respect that I thought I deserved when I was younger. Because I started my law firm, I don't know, I was probably about 24. I guess that's when
Well, that's young to start a firm.
yeah, it was straight out of law school. I actually had it incorporated before I passed the bar. So I knew what I wanted, but I didn't, I had the ambition. I did not have any knowledge about what the hell I should do.
And you had set goals. I mean, if you were getting incorporated before you passed the bar, you had already set yourself a standard, a goal that you were certain to achieve because you knew the focus that you had and where you were going. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people kind of meander through life. And I think it's important to, have a passion or do what you have to do. I mean, for comedy, I ended up having a passion, but the construction company, and after that, I had a portable disco company. Remember disco, spinning records? I wouldn't say I had a passion for them. Those were more out of necessity and making a living. But when you do, like you, Matt, have a passion and you have a goal, you're going to have your own firm. You would set yourself positions that you needed to reach in certain, I'm sure you had deadlines, 6 months, a year, 2 years.
No, yeah. I mean, I knew I was young and immature. I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I know I wanted to be successful. And unfortunately, it wasn't much more specific than that. I knew I wanted to pay the rent. And when I had my first employee, I knew I wanted to afford their salary. But I was not sophisticated enough to really set weekly and monthly and annual targets and, work out how am I going to achieve each target and how many new clients it's going to take to get this goal and da-da-da. It was more day-to-day kind of.
Yeah, 24. I mean, we didn't know anything. And that's the beauty of this country is that if you're willing to work hard, and I didn't have right now in my senior years, I tell people, write down your goals, set timelines, set deadlines so that you push yourself. But no, at 24, I was just trying to be constantly falling forward because I was making mistakes. But as long as I was moving forward, I knew there would be a positive result. But even that, I'm not even sure if you're conscious of. At the time, it's like survival. I got to make this work because I've invested so much money or so much time.
That's right. Yeah. Now, you're right. That's good, people noting down their goals. I think a lot of people get stuck in the I need experience game. Experience, I think, should be a means to an end, but not to get kind of.
Right. Well, it's kind of like what you had. It's called imposter syndrome, where you're not sure you have the knowledge and the ability to do what you want to do. And that's self-doubt. And I think the success of an entrepreneur is to recognize we all have doubt, but you push through the pain, you push through the fear, the challenge, you take the risk, and that's what helps you succeed. And it sounds like that's what you did. You weren't sure what you were doing, but you knew what you wanted to achieve, and you just kept falling forward.
That's right. I had about 10 random mentors that I would call based on the question I would get in the law firm. There were different types of attorneys. If I had this type of question, I'd call this attorney. If I had this type of question, this one. And it was funny. People were helpful. They didn't have this competitive defensive mechanism that popped up. I would call a random attorney who never knew me from Adam and ask him a very difficult, complex question, and they would just take their time and spill it out. I'm like, son of a gun. Like, they were nice. People were nice. It was good.
But you're bringing up a really important point, Matt, is that a lot of people are afraid to ask because they're afraid of the no. But the reality is people take pride in what they do and they want to share their knowledge, their wisdom, if people would just be smart enough to ask, right? And one of the things that I lean on my success with is that as a young age, I didn't have the fear to ask. I challenged myself to, as a salesman, for example, when you're a door-to-door salesman, and I've sold everything from vacuum cleaners to roofing, when you are going door to door, you're going to get a lot of doors slammed in your face. You're going to get a lot of no's, and you just have to persevere and push yourself. And even though it's difficult, if you take it personally, it can hurt, but you have to, if you're going to succeed, you have to push through that. And I think that's why not every Tom, Dick, and Harry is a successful entrepreneur, because it's not easy.
That's right.
You have to want it. You have to fight for it. You got to sacrifice for it. And what a lot of people aren't willing to do, and I know you did, Matt, is you have to take risk. You know, opening up a corporation before you pass the bar, that's risky. That's an investment. That's pushing for success in a positive way to your future before you even had it.
Yeah, you kind of jump it into a hole and you just don't know how deep it goes. Hopefully the bottom is not too far down and you break your legs on the fall.
But those things happen. For example, we alluded to it at one point. I had I started my comedy clubs and built it up to a chain and opened a few restaurants because, I had a recipe or something. I was always into art, so I had a couple art galleries. There was a lot of money running around during the Reagan years in the mid 80s, and I was very successful. I had this opportunity, a company I was involved in called Subseas. They own a company called Snuba, which is underwater snorkeling. It's all around the world. I was one of the original owners. And Snuba was doing really well. Well, the guys that owned that and had me as a partner built this submarine. And they said, "Hey, Scott, we could use some help. Come over to Oahu, Pearl Harbor, actually." And I helped them finish and launch this tourist submarine called the Nautilus One. And I thought, man, this is so cool, so crazy. I bought one. I built a submarine. It was the Nautilus 4. And I put it in Monterey Bay, and it was a tourist submarine. And we, showed off the pelagic fish and the sea lions and the sea otters. And it was a huge, huge financial failure. No, I invested millions of dollars. I got this submarine, but I put it in Monterey. Most of the other ones were are always in warm water, like, Hawaii or Florida. And I put it in cold water because I wanted to live near it. I live in Sacramento. Monterey is not too far away. And the water was so cold, we had a problem with the algae bloom. And I had to actually pay a scuba diver to go along the submarine and keep the windows clean so that people could see the fish. It was just above and beyond expensive. And after 2 years of losing money, I sold it to the Wrigley Gum family. It's still operating out of Catalina Island down off of Los Angeles. And it's doing fine for them because it's warmer water and they had more money than me. But the reason I brought it up, Matt, is that even though we're positive thinkers, we're entrepreneurs, and we're willing to take the risk, there's going to be failures.
Yeah.
That was a huge failure. I was telling your assistant, Peyton, I've had some huge success, and as a lawyer, I maybe should have known you, but I've also been bankrupt twice. So it's all part of being a business owner, an entrepreneur, and taking those risks. You're going to have some high highs, but you got to be able to sustain and survive the low lows.
Yep, mine was in 2008. I had to file bankruptcy. I think it's fun to talk about. At the time, I thought the world was ending. Exactly. Yeah, we're just battle scars for us now. It's knowledge we took away.
Yeah, it's wisdom. But, how many nights did we go to sleep sweating, going, will I even have a business the next day? I mean, that happened to me several times. It's just part of what makes us who we are. I think without too much bravado, I think one of the reasons I have been successful is that I've had all the bad things happen. I was also joking with Peyton that you're not truly an entrepreneur until you've been sued. I mean, I've been sued several times. When you own a business, it's just part of doing business. You get sued.
I know that. It's funny you say that because I'll have clients call me and they are devastated because they got a lawsuit. I'm like, listen, buddy, you're an entrepreneur. You're putting yourself out there. this is the shit that's going to happen. It's not going to take you out. This will be over in 2 months, but we'll deal with it.
Right. And it's no fun to go through. It's never a good thing. But it as a lawyer, you understand that it's the cost of doing business. A quick story that you as an attorney might enjoy. So I opened this comedy club, and it's early in the 80s, and it was actually a friend of mine at one point. I used to be his roommate. Was upset that we didn't have that we were back in those days. Everybody could smoke. So we had a nightclub, people smoked in it. And there was starting to be this non-smoking moment coming along through society. So we took like half the room and said, this is the non-smoking section, which now we know is kind of a joke because it's not like the smoke stayed on one side of the room. But, we had a non-smoking section and a smoking section. This did not appease the guy, and he threatened us. And so we banned him from the club. Now, our club was a public facility. It was a restaurant bar. And we banned him from the club because he got threatening and we had letters and phone calls that he was threatening the business. So we banned him. He sued us, and it went to court. And what was interesting, Matt, is that in the courtroom, I'm like going, hey, I'm just trying to run a business. I have a non-smoking section. I'm doing what I can. They had not made any of the federal or state laws saying there was no smoking in a restaurant. So this was truly just one man's crusade to put me out of business or to make my business different to fit his needs. And it went to court. I had to pay an attorney. And Matt, you'd be shocked to find out, because I lost the case.
Oh my gosh.
Was because, as a lawyer, you'll relate to this, we were not allowed to share all the information because it was damning to the other side. So here's what happened. So we go to trial. They went to a jury trial, and we lost the case. The judge awarded the guy that we banned $1.
Okay, nice.
Right? Because he knew the truth, but the jury didn't. We shouldn't have lost the case, but we were not allowed to share information that we had. And here's what happened. We lose the case, and then the judge says, okay, you win. We award you $1. We didn't have to pay his attorney's fees or anything. And after, we're out in front of the hallway, in front of the courtroom, and the jurors are coming up and going, okay, you shouldn't have lost that case. Our hands were tied. We had to vote against you. But what is it you're not telling us? Because I wasn't allowed to bring it up in the trial, but my old roommate, my friend, the guy that was suing us, had spent time in prison for trying to blow up his girlfriend's car.
Wow.
So when he threatened us, we took his threats seriously. When we got into court and trial, we weren't allowed to share that with the jury because it was prejudicial. But the judge knew it, right? Isn't that weird that we lost that case because we couldn't share something that was a truly frightening fact? The judge knew it and awarded him $1. Is that the most wild case?
That is wild. I still don't see what legal theory he won on it. Like, well, what did you violate? If you tell a guy he can't decide, if you were a public facility, like a public library or something, and you told somebody to go, that's different standards. But for a private company to say, I don't want to serve you, I don't know how he's got a claim against you.
Well, that's what we thought. But he somehow, his lawyer and he said that we were not allowing him in the club because of him, but because of the smoking issue. So they were saying it was more, he was almost like representing a classification of non-smokers. And what's it called? We were denying him access for reasons other than he was a bad guy that tried to blow up his wife. We did it his girlfriend. We did it because he was trying to force us to be a non-smoking establishment. I mean, it didn't make any sense to us, but I brought it up and I wanted to share that story with you as a lawyer because it didn't make a lot of sense. And the courts worked against us because we weren't allowed to share all the facts. And it was a case where I lost money because I had to pay my attorney. I only had to pay him $1, which was interesting. But these things happen. It's how bizarre.
That is bizarre. I can't believe that went all the way. I get that's a common argument regarding evidence, is whether it's more probative than prejudicial or more prejudicial than probative, like whether it's going to hurt the guy more than it's going to offer good evidence.
A guy going to prison for putting a car bomb in his girlfriend's car, I thought that was kind of important.
In y'all's context, I would agree. Like, that's why you were worried.
Yeah. And they said I only knew that because he was a friend of mine. And I go, oh, well, so yeah, I still knew it. So when he threatened the club, I took the threats, seriously. Funny story. I built it up to 3 clubs. I had the main club in Sacramento. I had a club in Stockton, and the manager of the Stockton room, called up once, was trying to call me, and got my, then bartender, then girlfriend, now wife on the phone, and says, hey, this is Lynn. Jill, get Scott. It's important. And Jill goes, well, he's on stage. She goes, no, this is really important. You have to get him. We've just had a bomb threat. And as soon as she said bomb threat, the phone went dead. And Jill just freaked out, hung up the phone, and literally ran up on stage and pulled me off. Said, no, you got to come now. I'm like, what the hell's going on? It turned out the phone had just disconnected. A bomb hadn't gone off. But, we didn't know.
Oh, okay.
It was just back in that day where sometimes people use bomb threats to damage a business. But I mean, stuff happens.
It does. It does. That's a fascinating thing. I have 2 questions regarding the submarine. Well, one's a comment, because it was funny when we were talking earlier and you said, I owned a submarine. I'm like, well, that is just cool. Because there's only one other person that I've heard, a private individual that owned a submarine, and that was Pablo Escobar. When he was trying to find better and more inventive methods to smuggle over. I think he bought her a submarine or 2. So you said I had a submarine. I'm like, no kidding. Tell me about this. But here's just a business question for you. What made you decide when it's time to just cut? Because I'll run into that issue myself. Like, all right, I've spent this much. I'm this far into it. Sooner or later, I think I can make it profitable. But damn, do I bleed for 5 years before I, stop the bleeding? Or is that bravery, or is that stupidity? Or, what made you conclude that?
Well, and I've made several mistakes with this, but it is true that you just have to do a hardcore analysis of separating your emotion from the business, because you never go into business unless you have a passion or an interest in what you're doing. Even owning a submarine, it was exciting. I love the ocean. It was dealing with tourists and sharing a story underwater. And it was a passion. But when financially and from a business standpoint, it gets where it's not going to succeed, and you can see it, and anybody in business, as hard as it is, will eventually or could eventually have that vision of the future. When you're in business, I'm sure you know this, Matt, there's times where you're dealing day to day to keep the doors open and survive and get through, like we're talking about with going bankrupt and going through different things. But generally, there's, you're looking 6 months, a year, maybe a couple of years ahead and where you think it'll be. And a good business person, once they determine there's not a good exit plan, that's when you start, okay, what are my options? And in this case, it was abandon the business, sell the submarine, and take your financial lumps and move on to the next adventure. But I opened a couple restaurants and built them up, and I always had a 5-year plan. And once I reached 5 years and I'd had some success, I would sell them as the successful business. Every business should have an exit plan. Even my comedy clubs, it took 21 years, but things changed in the industry. Things changed for me in business, and it was time to sell. Now, my club, Laughs Unlimited, when I started in 1980, I ran it for 21 years. It is still operating today. When I opened it, it was the 12th club in the entire U.S. doing stand-up comedy. It was that new in the industry. Now, it's 45 years later. It's one of the oldest clubs in the country. So I can take pride in that, even though I only was at the helm for the first 20 years. But every business, you have to decide what's best for the business, what's best for you, and have some sort of plan. The art galleries, I got into those because my mom raised me with a passion for art. I loved art. I got into animation. I opened up these art galleries, but I wasn't able to sell them because in the 90s, we had a downturn in the financial world and art galleries couldn't make it. And so I had to make the personal, difficult decision to just quietly close them down. So restaurants, I was able to build up and sell. The comedy clubs, I built up and sold. The art galleries, I just quietly let them fade away. And then the submarine was more of a panic, get rid of it, sell it and take your losses. So every experience in business is different, but you have to stay fluid and kind of go with what you have to deal with, right, man? I mean, you see all kinds of situations.
Yeah, it's funny too. We were laughing about it. Each Friday we have our exec meeting, and the executive council, which are the leaders in the firm, meet up and review the statistics and plan how we're going to conquer the world for the next week and the next month. And we'll go through a different dilemma, and we'll say, all right, well, we've learned our lessons. We'll never do this again. And then we'll find ourselves in the same position in the next 2 months, having done the same thing again.
Well, it is true that everybody makes mistakes. Repeating the mistakes can be fateful and end your career. So hopefully you learn from the mistakes, sure, and try not to repeat them. But, we're human beings. We do repeat things that you make decisions based on emotion versus financial sharpness, and it doesn't always work out for you. But you've had, you had Rachel on, who was a defense attorney, and you had Daniel Rios, who was a professional soccer player. You've had these interesting people on, but if you listen to their stories, it's all about overcoming the challenges to become the best in their industry, whether it's sports, comedy, entertainment, or in law. And I think that there's a similarity in that. Doesn't matter what career you're choosing, you just have to be focused, dedicated, and be willing to absorb the losses and the mistakes.
There you go. You said it exactly. No one can be afraid of failure. I remember this is a kind of a stupid comparison, but anyway, we were sparring, and like Muay Thai or kickboxing, we're sparring, and I was sparring against this female, and she would kick the hell out of you. I mean, it scared me, and she would just come up and knock the hell out of me, and I'm like, damn, what is she doing? And she had this no fear, and I remembered, I finally understood what was happening. Was she's not afraid of being hit because nobody hits her, and that's okay. That's how it should be. But that's kind of how you got to be. You can't be afraid of being hit. Or being, the response or the backflash of whatever. You almost got to expect to be hit and be ready to kind of roll with the punches.
But she taught you the fear of her.
She did.
But it's true, and I think that whatever challenge you're faced with, not everybody, and you don't want to point fingers, but not everybody has the ability to overcome the no's, the failures, the mistakes. I was listening to your show with your wife, Gabby, and she was just so eloquent in saying how she literally kind of fell into the financial world, but she fought and worked hard and found her success. And that is the key is not being fearful and working hard, right?
That's right. And being able to not be afraid. I was thinking, whatever you just said about something, it made me think of this. We had filed a lawsuit against a bank, and they, of course, had unlimited funds. My client had no money. So that meant I was financing everything, and I had no money. So we were just going around doing whatever we could. And I went to take the deposition of, I forgot which witness it was, but we went to their law firm, and we walked into this. It was like a castle.
Yeah,
and
like a mausoleum, right? Just
my mausoleum. That's right. But theirs was like this nice castle looking. They had the top attorneys from Georgia in this firm, and we went there, and I was sitting there, and the other attorney was talking, and I was so nervous that I couldn't move my pen, because you know how when you don't have anything to say, or you want to look like you know what you're doing. So I'm taking notes, and I'm being, and I couldn't even fake writing. I was so nervous. And when I try to talk, it just the words didn't quite form, but somehow we got through that and finished the case. But yeah, you got to just move on through and not be afraid to fail.
Right. And everybody has moments in their life when they're intimidated. And we were talking about earlier when you might have a little imposter syndrome, like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm not up to this caliber, right? And you just have to dig down deep and find your inner strength to take you through things. And, if you're able to do that, there's nothing that'll hold you back in the future, whatever it is: pro soccer, defense attorney, comedy club owner, loser submarine owner, whatever your adventure is. I call them adventures. It's interesting that it really comes down to us, and this is going to sound a little deep, I apologize, but as human beings, what we're made up of, and it's the challenges. I alluded to it earlier. I came from a single parent family, and we had financial struggles, and I was forced into doing things much earlier than my peers at the time. And even though it was challenging and tough and hardships, it taught me lessons. And in fact, J.D. Vance running for vice president, I just saw his movie based on his book, and talk about a guy that had all kinds of challenges, and he ended up being a world-class attorney and now running for vice president. But how many times, how many people can do that? And what's great about America is we have the opportunity to do that, each and every one of us. However, it takes the human being, the person, and they're taking their experiences and being able to focus it to reach their goals. It's a fascinating time.
Yes, it is. That's right. Yeah. J.D. Vance is an amazing person. I didn't know much about him till one of his interviews when he was talking about his book, The Hillbilly Elegy. Apogee.
Yeah, I didn't know that much either until my wife and I sat and watched the movie based on the book, and we go, man, it's amazing the guy survived all that. But it shows his strength in getting over the challenges, and there's so many stories like that. A lot of people have had great success. In fact, it's so funny because I don't know if it's because I'm old or because I'm leaning towards the right or what, but I get upset when people whine about how difficult it is and they want the government to take care of them and give them an opportunity. That's crap. You got to earn your own opportunity. You have to build your own opportunity. You have to create based on your passion and your interest and your past and what you've learned to make that opportunity happen. It's not, it's handed to a few people, that whole silver spoon thing, but that's the true entrepreneurs pull themselves up by their pants and get out and get it done. That sounds a little preachy, but I mean, it's
well, you're spot on. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it's a truism, and nothing's easy. You got to be willing to work hard. And I think one of the things that concerns my generation is that a couple generations behind us, the everybody gets a trophy generation, they haven't had the failures. They haven't had the tough times. Everybody's always told them how wonderful they are. I'm wondering how they're going to do in the real world.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's funny. I know Patrick Bet David did a good little segment on this, talking about how many of the robber barons or whatever you want to call them back from the 1800s, how much of that family wealth is still around. And it ain't much. Most of the inherited millionaires don't have it anymore. And the family's just kind of blown through it.
Yeah, I think the newest crop of millionaires or billionaires, it comes from the internet boom of about 2 decades ago. So we had the robber barons, the railroad companies, the manufacturing companies, the steel companies and their families. Then you had all the big boom when the internet was created and built. I don't know what the next one will be, but that, you're great if you're, and lucky if you're born into that. That doesn't mean you'll be a success. Look at, this sounds political, but look at Biden's son. He's never worked a day in his life and he's gone through millions. So it all depends. It was interesting because I heard one of your podcasts, you were talking about having a mission in completing something. For me in my life, I always like to call them adventures because you don't know what the outcome's going to be and you got to have fun while you're doing it. I didn't mention this earlier, but I was talking about the hard work and the dedication and the ups and the downs. But you know what? If you're not having fun, what the hell are you doing it for?
That's right.
I've had successes, I've had failures, but I always made sure I had a good time.
I remember, I'll give this one little story and then I got to wrap it up. But we started in real estate closings as our law firm did. And people don't realize this, but when you're a real estate closing attorney, you're also an insurance agent because you're putting insurance on all the properties that you close. So you got to have an agency that sponsors you that allows you to issue their insurance. If you can't do that, you cannot be a closing attorney, a real estate attorney. So I remember the day when they came. We went through a lot on real estate, and we were successful in that we had a lot of business, but it was not fun. It was not controlled. It was not managed. And I was worried constantly. So anyway, and then I remember when they came to my office, I lost my title insurance because we had claims, lawsuits, we had screwed up. And I remember half of me got worried because that's shutting down my company when they take your insurance. So half of me is like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And the other half of me was like, thank God, I am so sick of this life.
I was waiting for the excuse to get out.
Yeah, she's forcing me to get away from this, and I'm grateful for that. So anyway, we moved on to bigger and better things. It was a good thing.
Well, sometimes good things come out of bad situations. It's funny you mentioned insurance. My last adventure for the last 15 years, the company I just sold and retired from in December was a medium-sized insurance brokerage. So I didn't get into it because I love insurance, but I love customer service and helping my clients and help them protect their assets. But so I can totally relate to what you're talking about. And I'm glad you got out of that.
Yeah, we were kind of forced out, but I was happy to exit. It was time. I'd done my time as a real estate closing attorney.
Well, like I said, it comes down to hard work and you have to be able to do the time to get to the other side. But I'm glad you've had so much success and now you have your podcast and you and your bride are doing so well. Congratulations on everything.
Listen, I appreciate that. And congratulations to you for all you've done.
Well, I'm hoping it's not all in the past.
Well, no, I don't think that it is, but so far you've done a lot and it's amazing.
It's been a fun ride. I will plug myself. I've recently retired, but the last few years as a hobby and something that I'm having fun with is that I'm a podcaster and it helps me stay connected to the comedy world. My podcast is called Stand Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. And that comes from the way I was introduced on stage for over 20 years. But if your audience is interested and could use a good laugh, I do interviews and straight comedy sets on stand-up comedy, your host and MC. So hopefully they can bring a smile to their face.
So stand-up comedy, your host and MC.
Yep, it's on all platforms and heard all around the world. I've been doing it for 5 years. I've had over 250,000 downloads, and it's a successful, fun podcast.
Well done, man. All right, Scott. Well, listen, thanks again for your time.
Hey, I hope it was interesting. Hope everybody had a good time.
I had a great time. That was very interesting. Very interesting. Shit, there you go. Nice.
Good. Thanks, Matt. And keep up the good work. You're doing a great show, and I know your listeners are getting something out of each and every interview. So thanks for doing what you do.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been another Hines on Air. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel, click the like below, and please leave any comments for us. We'll see you next time.
Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories.